We are moving now to the next speaker. We have Juan Rivas, who is going to talk about alternative energies in maritime transportation.
Bueno, buenos días a todos. Mi mesa
Good morning.
está por una sola persona, que soy yo, parece ser.
I am the only one talking in this panel.
Visitante de los armadores que actuará por la tarde. Pero bueno,
There will be a representative of ship
en un
owners
contexto de
talking this afternoon,
port,
but
y los
we are in this
tenemos algo
context of
que decir.
Greenport,
Tenemos algo que decir
and ship owners have something to say.
ante la Comisión Europea.
Because as the representative of the European Commission said,
Si alguien es así,
we are
somos los
green and blue.
Pero antes de nada quiero agradecer al Puerto de Vigo la organización de esta
I would like to thank the Port of Vigo for organizing this fourth conference.
no la hubo por causas
Last year we could not
desde su ardía.
have it,
Siempre hemos querido participar, siempre hemos apoyado los
but
trabajos
well,
del puerto que
we
hacemos.
at Suadias always wanted to collaborate and participate, and I would like to say congratulations to Carlos, who organized the Congress, and I would like to tell him that you can count on us anytime you need. I'm going to give you an idea from the point of view of ship owners. Maritime transport was the first industry to have a line to reduce greenhouse emissions. And these binding rules are global because they need to affect the entire world fleet, reducing CO2 emissions as far as possible when the European regulation that is being applied is 5 times harder. We consider that these rules need to be global because our sector is global, so the rules should be global. Regional European rules, we believe that have to be linked to the regulations of the International Maritime Organization. So the example is homogeneous. As you know, the current objective of the IMO is to reduce by 40% the emissions for 2030 with regard to 2008. In 2050, the reductions should be around 90%. And here, this acceleration requested by the regulation require a collaboration between the private and the public sector in order to achieve those objectives that we, the ship owners, share, of course, but we believe that they are quite ambitious and that in our sector, we don't have the technologies to achieve them. So we need the public-private support. We are aware that the European Green Deal is even more challenging. What is the main problem that we see here? The main problem of vessels is that there are no fuels and technologies yet to stabilize the decarbonization of the sector. And this is what is worrying us. If we need a specific technology that is sustainably efficient, we will buy in the market that is existing. We cannot produce that energy. We are not manufacturing the engines, so we are the final customer that needs to access a market to comply with the regulations. And this needs to be transferred to the consumers, to the clients. And even if they are all aligned um, on this search of a environmental sustainability, we don't always find that return when paying the products. One of the main problems of vessels is that the space is limited in order to generate those energies on board. So we would have to transport the green fuels, and that would involve occupying space on the vessel, and the costs would be higher. It is true that in some merchant ships, for example, rigid sails have been introduced, but in the short term or medium term, these installations will not be able to provide around more than 5-10% of what boat requires for sailing. Also, batteries are being renewed. This could be feasible for short trips, even for auxiliary equipment, but this is difficult that it becomes a feasible alternative. It could be used for propylene, maybe in some parts. Now, hydrogen is the new fashion. So now instead of talking about gas, we are talking about hydrogen, and it has to be green.
Recording
So
stopped.
generated by green and in order to be used
Recording in
as a
progress.
fuel in vessels, it has to be uh, liquefied, and that involves technical issues on board, and they require 5 times more space than regular fuels. So this is not expected to be the final solution for maritime transportation. Maybe in the medium term, we will conduct some projects, uh, and we can reduce by 15% of the emissions. But finally, green ammoniac, sorry, Energy Solution expects that for 2024 we'll have the first engine fueled by ammonia. And by the end of this decade, the sector could have an alternative to fossil fuels, but that requires enough renewable energy to produce them. And a new land infrastructure, this is where ports come for the manufacturing and managing and supply of them. And of course, safety is required. So, as Javier was saying before, the fishing vessels have the same problems as merchant vessels. If private companies cannot be the only ones making all these efforts, that's why we need a private public collaboration. In the short term, the role of ports in this energy transition, we need to make the most of what we have. First, the connection to the electric grid on land at the port, the electric energy supplied by renewable sources will reduce the CO2 emissions. In order to encourage the boats or vessels to carry out these improvements, the ports need to have the infrastructure and the use needs to be boosted. For example, with the corrective charge measures, with a reduction of 50%. I think that is still limited. In our projects developed with the Port of Vigo, we are, for example, installing these electric connections to land for the ships. And we have worked in projects financed by the European Commission that involve this connection to the land grid. This reduction I was talking about, reduction of the fees, should be applied also to any other system that achieves the same objective. For example, with this, we could encourage the installation of any technology that reduces emissions. If we talk about ecofuels, they could be another alternative that could be promoted. In this case, ecofuels adapted to technical vessels, it would be easy to adapt them. Sometimes just by cleaning thoroughly the fuel tanks. There are different projects from European ship owners related to fuel, but we need to keep working. And the problem is the cost that this involves. In the maritime transport sector, we have so many um, areas. I have a friend who suggests when we meet at European forums is to reduce the speed of the vessels to reduce emissions. But at the end, you will need to have another ship to cover the same area. These initiatives and regulations are damaging, especially some companies, because maybe you have a road alternative to the maritime transport, and the clients are going to look for the better price. So this is a sensitive situation that has to be dealt with specifically by institutions. And finally, liquefied natural gas, as you know, reduces significantly the polluting emissions and the green gas effects to a lower extent. It has been proved, and ship owners depend on a supply source that still needs to be developed. But I have to say that in Spain, it has moved forward and progressed quite a lot in the last few years. I went to this congress devoted to gas as an alternative energy source. And this is a transition system while we don't find the perfect solution. So, as I said, it's not efficient to reduce greenhouse effects, but it helps to reduce the use of fossil fuels. A ship owner told me yesterday that he has installed this kind of system, and he's going back to the traditional fuels because it's cheaper. In this transition, the ports are essential passing points for all ship owners, and they should provide the ships with the technologies and fuels required with the appropriate safety regulations. And this is a huge task. In the medium term, it would involve a huge investment on research and development. And at local level, um, we need to support the shipyards and the shipping companies And we need to apply all of this to the small companies too. There is a successful project here in Vigo, which is opening Vigo to the sea, and we need to continue supporting these small companies which have been investing in Vigo for more than 50 years, and we are updating every single year. And that's where we need to focus. And I know that the Port of Vigo is helping, and we have presented different projects, but we need to collaborate. I insist. As I said before, be green, go blue. We need to think big, but let's work and act with the local industry. Thank you very much.